Welcome back to the Global Pulse, your essential source for understanding the complex currents shaping our world. Today, we're diving deep into a story that has sent ripples through global markets and escalated geopolitical tensions: the United States seizure of tankers linked to Venezuela. This isn't just about a few ships. It's a dramatic chapter in an ongoing oil war that's challenging international norms, impacting energy prices, and redefining alliances. We'll unpack the immediate aftermath, explore the legal and political battlegrounds, and analyze why this move by the US has triggered such a seismic response across the globe. Grab your coffee because we're about to navigate some turbulent waters. This story has far-reaching implications for everyone, from investors to the everyday consumer at the gas pump. To truly grasp the significance of these recent seizures, we need to understand the long and contentious history between the US and Venezuela. For years, the U.S. has maintained a robust sanctions regime against the Maduro government, citing allegations of human rights abuses, corruption, and undermining democracy. These sanctions are designed to restrict Venezuela's access to international financial systems and, crucially, to its oil revenue, the lifeblood of its economy. The aim has been to pressure the regime into democratic reforms, but the impact has been widespread, often exacerbating humanitarian crises within Venezuela and pushing Caracas to seek alternative trading partners, primarily Iran and China, leading to a complex web of transactions aimed at circumventing these very sanctions. Now let's get to the specifics of the recent seizures. In a move that garnered significant international attention, the U.S. Justice Department, working with the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, successfully orchestrated the seizure of 4 oil tankers. These vessels, allegedly carrying Iranian gasoline bound for Venezuela, were intercepted. The U.S. justified these actions under counterterrorism statutes and sanctions violations, arguing that the transactions benefited entities designated as terrorist organizations. This was not a military interception on the high seas, but rather a legal maneuver utilizing forfeiture warrants. This distinction is crucial, as it allowed the U.S. to enforce its sanctions without resorting to direct military confrontation, yet still achieving its objective of disrupting illicit oil flows. The U.S. government invoked specific legal frameworks to execute these seizures. Primarily, it cited the forfeiture of assets under U.S. anti-terrorism laws, arguing that the proceeds from these oil sales would directly benefit Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which Washington has designated as a terrorist organization. This legal argument effectively allowed the U.S. to target the cargo itself, rather than directly confronting sovereign nations or their vessels militarily. This approach sets a significant and, some would argue, controversial international precedent. Critics argue it extends U.S. jurisdiction beyond internationally recognized boundaries, potentially inviting retaliatory measures or challenging the freedom of navigation for other nations. The debate revolves around the extraterritorial application of domestic laws. Unsurprisingly, both Venezuela and Iran reacted with outrage. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro condemned the seizures as an act of piracy and economic terrorism by the United States, vowing to continue trade with allied nations. Maduro accused the U.S. of violating international law and sovereignty, framing the actions as part of a broader campaign to destabilize his government. Iran, for its part, issued stern warnings, calling the U.S. actions illegal and provocative, and hinting at potential retaliatory measures if its commercial interests or vessels were directly threatened. This rhetorical escalation underscores the deepening animosity between Washington and both Caracas and Tehran, transforming what might seem like a simple law enforcement action into a major geopolitical flashpoint with potential for wider repercussions. The most immediate and tangible impact of these seizures was felt in the global oil markets. While the seized volume might seem small in the grand scheme of global supply, the symbolic nature of the action, coupled with the escalating rhetoric, immediately introduced a fresh wave of uncertainty. Oil prices, already volatile due to global demand fluctuations and OPEC+ policies, saw an upward spike. Traders reacted to the increased risk premium associated with shipping oil from certain regions and the potential for broader supply disruptions if these oil wars escalate. This wasn't just about the physical loss of fuel, it was about the perception of increased geopolitical risk, making investors nervous and pushing up crude futures. This serves as a stark reminder of how quickly political actions can reverberate through economic systems. This tanker seizure is not an isolated incident. It's a critical move on a much larger geopolitical chessboard. The U.S. action sends a clear message not only to Venezuela, but also to Iran, which relies heavily on oil exports to fund its economy, often circumventing sanctions. It also implicitly warns other nations considering similar transactions that the U.S. is prepared to enforce its extraterritorial laws. This creates a difficult situation for countries like China, a major oil consumer, which has been a significant buyer of Venezuelan and Iranian crude. Beijing has generally condemned unilateral sanctions, balancing its energy needs with its diplomatic stance. The oil wars are increasingly becoming a battleground not just for resources, but for the very principles of international law and sovereignty, challenging the existing global order. While policymakers debate geopolitical grand strategy, the economic fallout from these oil wars directly impacts everyday life. Higher oil prices translate to increased costs across the supply chain. Everything from manufacturing to transportation becomes more expensive, leading to inflationary pressures that directly hit consumers' wallets. We're talking about higher prices at the gas pump, more expensive goods on store shelves, and potentially slower economic growth if energy costs remain elevated. For nations heavily reliant on oil imports, this adds another layer of economic instability during an already fragile global recovery. This constant tension in oil shipping lanes and the enforcement of sanctions have created a new normal of energy market volatility, forcing businesses and consumers to adapt to unpredictable price swings.
Oh, what does the future hold for these oil wars? The path ahead is fraught with uncertainty. One possibility is continued escalation, with the U.S. intensifying its enforcement of sanctions, and Venezuela and Iran seeking new, more covert ways to bypass them. This could lead to more seizures, more aggressive rhetoric, and even the risk of direct confrontations. Alternatively, there's a slim possibility for de-escalation through diplomatic channels. Negotiations, perhaps involving third-party mediators, could seek to find off-ramps from the current tensions. However, with deeply entrenched positions and high stakes for all parties, a diplomatic breakthrough seems challenging in the short term. The global community remains watchful, as the next move by any player could have profound consequences for energy security and international relations.
In conclusion, the U.S. seizure of tankers linked to Venezuela isn't just a headline. It's a powerful indicator of the volatile state of global geopolitics in energy markets. It highlights the complexities of unilateral sanctions, the lengths to which nations will go to circumvent them, and the immediate economic ramifications for ordinary people worldwide. As these oil wars continue, we must remember that every action has a reaction, and the ripples extend far beyond the shores where these tankers were intercepted. Staying informed is crucial, as these events will undoubtedly shape the political landscape, economic stability, and energy security for years to come. Thank you for joining me on the Global Pulse. We'll continue to track these developments and bring you the clarity you need to understand our rapidly changing world. Until next time, stay safe and stay informed.